My name is Olivia, and at 25, I thought I had my life figured out. I was engaged to a man I thought I knew inside and out. Lucas was charming, successful, and most importantly, mine. We had spent 3 years together building a future, planning a wedding, creating the kind of love story people envied, or so I thought. Until one moment, one insignificant, fleeting moment, shattered everything. It started on my mother's birthday. My fiance and I had driven back to my hometown for the small family gathering. It had been 4 months since I last saw them, and I was excited, especially to see my younger brother, Nate. He was 17, still trying to navigate the hellscape of high school, and despite the age gap, we had always been close. He was the one person in my life who never judged, never pretended, never made me feel like I had to be anything other than myself. So when he pulled me aside that night, eyes brimming with frustration and sadness, I didn't hesitate. We sat on the back porch, the cool night air carrying the scent of my mom's lavender plants. He told me about school, about the stress, about the so-called friends who had turned on him. His voice cracked when he admitted how alone he felt. My heart ached for him. I wrapped him in a tight hug and whispered, "You're going to be okay, Nate, I promise." And as I pulled away, I pressed a quick kiss to his cheek, a simple, affectionate, sisterly kiss. And that was when hell broke loose. Lucas had been standing in the doorway, watching. I hadn't even noticed him there until I heard his voice, tight with something dark and ugly. "Are you guys done?" I turned, startled. His expression was unreadable at first, but his eyes, those piercing blue eyes I used to adore, were sharp, burning with something I couldn't name yet. "What?" I asked, frowning. He scoffed. "You're really going to act like that was normal?" I blinked. "What are you talking about?" Lucas let out a dry laugh and shook his head. "Jesus, Olivia, you just kissed your brother." My stomach twisted. His tone, disgusted, accusatory, made my skin crawl. "I kissed him on the cheek, Lucas." He folded his arms, jaw tightening. "Yeah, that's not normal." I was too stunned to respond at first. I searched his face, looking for the joke, the smirk, the little tell that meant he was messing with me, but there was nothing, just cold, seething judgment. "Lucas, it's a kiss on the cheek. Are you seriously?" "It's fucking weird, Olivia." The air turned thick and suffocating. My hands curled into fists at my sides. "Excuse me?" "I've already had to deal with your little cuddling and hand-holding shit with him," he snapped. I let it go. "But this? Jesus Christ, Olivia, it's fucking gross." The sheer venom in his words hit me like a slap. He wasn't just annoyed. He wasn't just uncomfortable. He was repulsed by me, by my relationship with my own brother. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I forced myself to speak, my voice shaking. "You think I'm, what, in love with my brother?" Lucas didn't hesitate. "Yeah, I think it's fucked up." The words knocked the breath from my lungs. My world tilted, spiraling into something I didn't recognize. This is the man I'm marrying? The man I've spent 3 years with? The man I thought loved me? I couldn't think, couldn't process. Lucas shook his head like he was disgusted just looking at me. "You know what? I don't even want to talk about this anymore. I can't fucking look at you right now." And then he left, just like that. That night, he didn't speak to me. The next morning, I woke up to find him outside on the phone, with his mother. When I walked in, she was already waiting. "Olivia," she said, her voice too calm. "Lucas told me everything." "Everything? What was there to tell?" "He's upset," she continued, "and I understand why. What you did," she inhaled sharply, "it's not appropriate. You need to understand that." I felt something ice cold crawl up my spine. "Excuse me?" "It's not normal, dear," she said, her tone laced with condescension. "The hugging, the kissing, it's making Lucas uncomfortable, and I think if you truly love him, you'll make an effort to distance yourself from Nate." I stared at her. She wanted me to what? "You're telling me I should stop seeing my own brother?" She sighed like she was speaking to a child who just couldn't grasp something simple. "If you want this marriage to work, yes. I'm sure you understand." I had to stop myself from laughing. It was a cruel, bitter kind of amusement. Lucas had run to his mommy about how disturbed he was by me existing as a sister, and instead of telling him he was insane, she was siding with him. I had spent 3 years believing Lucas was my future, that we were a team, that he was my partner in everything. And now, because of one harmless kiss on my brother's cheek, I was suddenly some perverted freak who needed to be corrected. I finally understood. Lucas wasn't my partner. He wasn't my teammate. He was an insecure, controlling, pathetic excuse for a man, and I had wasted 3 years loving him. But I wasn't going to waste one more second. I met Vivian's gaze, my expression unreadable. I'll think about it, I lied, because what I was really thinking about was how to make them both regret ever trying to control me. People say heartbreak is supposed to be slow, a creeping realization, a gradual erosion of trust. But for me, it happened in an instant. One moment I was engaged to a man I thought I loved, the next I was staring at the ugly, twisted truth of who he really was. Lucas had spent 3 years convincing me he was perfect, thoughtful, successful, attentive, the kind of man who held doors open and remembered my coffee order, the kind of man my mother adored, who made my friends jealous, who looked like he had walked straight out of a Hallmark movie. But the thing about people like Lucas, the ones who shine a little too bright, who are a little too polished, they always have something to hide. And God, I should have seen it sooner. It started the day after the argument. Lucas had left town early, claiming he needed space, leaving me at my mother's house with nothing but a nauseating pit in my stomach. Something didn't sit right. Not just the way he had reacted, but the way he had escalated it. No normal person would jump to incest just because their fiancé hugged her younger brother. No normal man would go running to his mother instead of having an adult conversation with me. It wasn't just insecurity, it was obsession. And suddenly, I found myself wondering, had there been signs before? Had I ignored them? I needed answers. And I found them in the last place I ever expected. His past. Lucas never talked about his exes, ever. He brushed off the topic like it was nothing. They're not important, he would say, flashing me that perfect practice smile. What matters is us. And for the longest time, I believed him. I never pushed, never questioned why a man so charismatic, so well put together, had no lingering friendships or even casual acquaintances from his past relationships. But after what happened, I had a sickening suspicion, one I couldn't shake. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I went digging. At first, it was innocent, scrolling through old Facebook photos, cross-referencing names. But then I started finding holes. His last serious relationship, a woman named Hannah. They had dated for almost 2 years, but there were barely any traces of her. No breakup posts, no closure, just radio silence. It took me hours to track her down. She had changed her last name on social media, moved states, but eventually I found her Instagram and my stomach turned to ice when I saw her bio, Survivor. I didn't want to assume, didn't want to believe that Lucas, my Lucas, could be the reason behind that single haunting word, but I had to know. I took a risk and messaged her. Hey, this is really random, but I think we have something in common. You dated Lucas, right? I didn't expect a response, but 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. And what she sent me, it shattered every last illusion I had left. Hannah didn't hold back. Olivia, get out now. That was the first thing she said. Then came the rest. She told me how, at first, Lucas had been perfect, charming, considerate, attentive, but it changed, slowly, insidiously, until she barely recognized herself. He isolated her, controlled her, made her feel like she was crazy for questioning his jealousy, his rage. And then the control turned physical. He put me in the hospital once, she admitted. And the worst part, he convinced me it was my fault, that I made him do it. And I believed him. I sat there shaking. I wanted to be shocked, but deep down I wasn't. I had felt that same slow, creeping control with Lucas. The way he dictated what I wore, who I spent time with, the way he dismissed my opinions made me second guess myself, the way he made his love feel like a privilege I had to earn, but I had ignored it because he never hit me, because I told myself he wasn't like that. I had been so wrong. And now I was next. I could feel it. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, letting the weight of Hannah's words settle into my bones. And then I made a decision. I wasn't going to run. I wasn't going to beg or plead or try to fix a man who was beyond saving. No, I was going to do something better. I was going to burn him to the ground. I started small. Lucas was meticulous, careful with his public image. He crafted his persona like an artist. Clean cut, successful, deeply respected. If I was going to take him down, I needed to be patient. So I played my part. I didn't confront him, didn't let him know what I had discovered. Instead, I sent him a message. Hey, I miss you. Can we talk? He replied within seconds. Of course, baby, I was just giving you space. I love you. Let's fix this. I stared at the words. I love you. He had no idea that I knew what he was, no idea that by the time I was done with him, he wouldn't have a reputation left to salvage. Over the next few weeks, I built my case. I reached out to more of his exes. Each story worse than the last. I collected screenshots, medical records, restraining orders he had managed to keep quiet. I compiled everything into a neat, damning little folder. Then I found the one person who could help me ruin him, his best friend, Ryan. Lucas trusted Ryan more than anyone. He told him everything, and Ryan, well, Ryan had his own reasons for wanting revenge. Because it turned out Lucas had betrayed him too, and nothing stings more than a best friend's knife in the back. By the time Lucas realized what was happening, it was too late. I had set the dominoes in motion, and when they fell, he would lose everything. Because the worst kind of revenge is the kind that blindsides you. And Lucas? He never even saw me coming. People like Lucas never think they'll lose. That's the thing about men like him. Their arrogance is so deeply ingrained, their belief in their own superiority so unshakable, that even when the walls start closing in, they still think they're in control. And that was going to be his downfall. Because while he was basking in his imagined victory, convinced he had broken me, I was already setting the trap. I knew I had to play my part flawlessly. Lucas was sharp, paranoid even. He had spent years perfecting the art of manipulation, twisting reality, rewriting history, making women doubt their own sanity. If I suddenly flipped a switch and acted cold or distant, he'd suspect something. So I did the opposite. I leaned into the lie. I called him, my voice soft, hesitant. Lucas, I miss you. The satisfaction in his voice was almost tangible. I knew you'd come around, baby. You just needed time. Time. That's what he thought this was. A momentary lapse, a temporary rift in his carefully controlled world. He thought I was breaking. He thought I was his again. He had no idea that every word out of my mouth was calculated, that every sigh, every hesitation, every carefully placed pause was part of a bigger plan. He had no idea that I was already 6 steps ahead. Lucas was the kind of man who needed to win. It wasn't enough for me to simply forgive him. No, he needed me to admit I was wrong. He needed to hear me say that I had overreacted, that I had made a mistake by doubting him. So I gave him exactly what he wanted. I let him believe I was unraveling, that I was lonely, lost without him, that the idea of losing him was breaking me more than what he had done. And God, did he eat it up. I told you, Liv, you always get in your head about things. You let other people poison you against me. I know you, baby. You're emotional, you overthink, but I forgive you. I had to physically bite my tongue to keep from laughing. Forgive me. Oh, Lucas. If only you knew. In public, he played the role of the devoted fiancé perfectly. We went out for dinner, and he made a show of holding my hand, leaning in close, murmuring little reassurances in my ear. To anyone watching, we looked like the picture of a perfect couple. 2 people rebuilding, reconciling, falling back in love. And he wanted people to see that. He wanted my friends, my family, anyone who had dared to question him to look at us and think, maybe we were wrong. Maybe he's not so bad. Maybe Olivia just misunderstood. He was weaving his web, spinning his own version of the story, positioning himself as the victim of my paranoia. And I let him. I smiled at the right moments. I leaned into his touch just enough. I let him think he had me back under his thumb. Because the longer he believed he was in control, the harder he would fall when I ripped it all away. Lucas had won before, with Hannah, with his other exes, with every woman he had twisted, broken, discarded, like they were nothing more than collateral damage in his endless pursuit of power. But I wasn't them, and I wasn't going to lose. The more time I spent with him, the more I realized just how stupidly confident he was. He had no idea that I had spoken to his exes, that I had pieced together every horror story, every gaslit nightmare he had put them through. He had no idea that I had collected proof, screenshots, voice recordings, a legal statement from Hannah detailing exactly what he had done to her. He had no idea that I had spent weeks building my case carefully, meticulously, ensuring that when I finally pulled the trigger, there would be nothing left of his pristine, curated reputation. And most importantly, he had no idea that his best friend, Ryan, was working with me. Ryan had always been loyal to Lucas, or at least Lucas had assumed he was. But the truth? The truth was that Ryan had his own reasons for wanting to take Lucas down. He had seen firsthand how Lucas treated women. He had watched silently as Lucas destroyed lives, manipulated people, hurt people. And now? Now he was done being complicit. So when I went to him with my plan, he didn't hesitate. Because there was nothing more dangerous to a man like Lucas than the one person he trusted most turning against him. The night before everything fell apart, Lucas was radiant. We were at a party, one of those sleek, high-end events he loved, surrounded by people he wanted to impress. He had his arm around me, his fingers tracing circles on my shoulder, his voice smooth and practiced as he charmed the room. And for the first time, I really looked at him, not as the man I once loved, not as the person I thought he was, but as the pathetic, insecure fraud he had always been. And I felt nothing. No anger, no pain, just cold satisfaction. Because tomorrow everything would change. Tomorrow the mask would slip. Tomorrow Lucas would realize that he hadn't won, that he had never been winning at all. Because the thing about men like him, they always think they're the predator until the day they realize they've been the prey all along. People like Lucas never see it coming. That's what makes it so satisfying. He spent so much time believing he had me under control, convinced I was just another woman he could gaslight, manipulate, and break down until I was nothing but a shadow of myself. But he was wrong, and tonight he was about to learn just how wrong he really was. It started at the gala, one of those elite invitation new events filled with overpriced champagne and self-important men pretending they were more powerful than they actually were. Lucas had been preparing for this night for weeks. It was supposed to be a major networking opportunity for him. Business executives, potential investors, people who could elevate his career to the next level. He was buzzing with anticipation, grinning like he had already won. I stayed close, playing my part, letting him believe I was still the devoted fiancé who had come crawling back. And he believed it, because of course he did. His ego wouldn't allow him to think otherwise. But what he didn't know was that by the end of the night, his entire world would crumble, and I was going to love every second of it. It began with the whispers. Soft at first, just enough to make Lucas shift uncomfortably, glancing over his shoulder every few minutes as if sensing something was off, but unable to place what. I saw the first flash of unease in his eyes when a woman in a navy blue dress shot him a look filled with disgust, her lips curling in quiet revulsion before turning away. Then another, and another. Lucas straightened his tie, his jaw tightening as he leaned into me. "Did you hear something?" I hid my smirk behind my champagne glass. Hmm? No. Why? He shook his head, forcing a chuckle. Nothing, just thought I heard someone say my name. Oh, Lucas. You did. And it was only the beginning. The real impact hit when Ryan made his move, Lucas's best friend, his right-hand man, the one person he believed was truly loyal to him. Ryan had spent years cleaning up Lucas's messes, watching silently as he manipulated women, ruined lives, destroyed people. But not anymore. Not after everything I told him. Not after he learned the full extent of the damage Lucas had done. So when Ryan stepped forward, microphone in hand, smiling as he raised a glass in a mock toast, I knew this was it, the moment Lucas would fall. Ladies and gentlemen, Ryan began, his voice smooth, charming. Tonight we celebrate ambition, success, and the people who make this world a better place. A murmur of polite agreement rippled through the crowd. Lucas, still oblivious, lifted his glass. Ryan's smile widened. And speaking of ambition, he continued, there's one man here tonight who has always thrived on power, on control, on ensuring that he gets exactly what he wants. Lucas's expression flickered, the first real crack. But power, my friends, is a tricky thing. Because when you build your empire on lies, on abuse, on the backs of the people you've hurt, Ryan paused, letting the words sink in. The tension in the room was palpable. Lucas stiffened beside me, his fingers twitching around his glass. What the hell is he doing? He hissed under his breath. I took a slow sip of my drink, savoring the moment. Burning you to the ground, I whispered back. Ryan turned to face Lucas directly. So let's raise a glass, he said, his voice laced with venom. To the man who thought he could get away with it, to the man who underestimated the wrong woman. Silence. Then the first ding of a phone notification. And then another, then dozens. Everywhere, people were pulling out their phones, scanning the screens, their expressions shifting from curiosity to horror. And then Lucas's phone buzzed. He hesitated, swallowed, and finally, with shaking fingers, he unlocked it. His face drained of color, the emails, the screenshots, the voice recordings of him threatening Hannah, the police report she had filed against him years ago, the one he had buried, convinced it would never resurface. Everything, every disgusting, vile, monstrous thing he had done, all of it public, sent to every major news outlet, every investor, every single person he had ever wanted to impress, his carefully crafted image destroyed, his future shattered. And the best part, it was all his fault, because he underestimated me. He thought I was weak. He thought I would break. Instead, I burned his empire to the ground, and as he staggered back, his mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air, I leaned in one last time just to watch the light leave his eyes. Checkmate. Then I turned and walked away. There's a moment right before a storm truly hits, a deceptive calm that tricks people into thinking they're safe. That's exactly how it felt watching Lucas crumble. He had spent years controlling people, manipulating them, making them believe he was invincible. But standing in the middle of that gala, his face pale, his hands shaking, his carefully built world collapsing around him, for the first time in his life, he realized he had lost. And I made sure there was no coming back from it. The chaos hit immediately. The whispers exploded into full-blown gasps as more people scrolled through the leaked files, reading the ugly truth about Lucas's past. Hannah's police report. The other women he had abused, threatening, blackmailing, ruining their reputations to silence them. The hidden contracts, the fraudulent deals, the lawsuits he had buried with hush money. It was all there, public, undeniable. And Lucas? He was drowning in it. This is a lie, he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. This isn't real. But then Ryan turned to face him. You should leave, he said, voice steady. Lucas stared at him, his mouth twitching like he was about to argue. But there was nothing left to say. People were already pulling away, their disgust evident. Some of them took a step back, like he was something rotten, like just standing near him was toxic. Investors were deleting his number, business associates were shaking their heads, turning their backs. Lucas wasn't just humiliated, he was erased. And I wasn't done yet. He ran, like a coward, bolted out of the gala, shoving past people, desperate to escape. I followed, not too close, just enough to watch. By the time he reached his car, he was frantic, his hands shaking too much to get the keys into the ignition. Olivia, he finally croaked out, looking up at me, his eyes wild with desperation. You have to fix this. I tilted my head, pretending to consider. Fix this? I echoed, stepping closer. You mean undo everything you did? Make people forget that you're a monster? His jaw clenched. You don't get it. My career, my entire life. I laughed. A slow, cold laugh that made his expression shift, because for the first time he really saw me. Not as the quiet, obedient fiancé, not as the woman he thought he could break, but as his executioner. You think this is bad? I said, my voice dripping with amusement. Lucas, this is just the beginning. And then I delivered the final blow. By the way, I continued, I ran into your father last week. Lucas froze. I smiled. Nice man. A little ashamed of you, though. He didn't take it well when he found out about the abuse. He's already contacted the board at your company. I think they're drafting a statement about cutting ties with you as we speak. He flinched. I leaned in, lowering my voice. You know what that means, don't you? Silence. Then, no, he whispered. Oh, but yes. His last safety net, the company, the only thing still keeping him afloat, was gone. Stripped away. Just like that. It didn't take long for the media to pounce. The articles came in waves. Lucas Hastings exposed, the monster behind the mask. Multiple women come forward with allegations against disgraced CEO. Investors cut all ties. Hastings Enterprises in free fall. It was glorious. And Lucas? Lucas had nothing. Now, here's where most people would stop. They'd be satisfied with destroying his career, his reputation, his entire future. But me, I wanted more. I wanted him to feel it. So I did what he would never see coming. I married his best friend, Ryan, the one person Lucas had trusted, the one person Lucas had never expected to betray him. It wasn't just about love, it was about proving a point. Lucas thought he could control me, thought he could isolate me, thought I would break without him, but instead I was thriving. And he was rotting. It was months later. I was walking down the street, hand in hand with Ryan, laughing, free. And then I saw him, sitting alone at an outdoor cafe, his shoulders slumped, his clothes wrinkled, his hair a mess. He looked miserable, pathetic, like a man who had lost everything. Our eyes met for a second, just a flicker. I saw recognition, then pain, then resentment. But I didn't stop. I didn't slow down. I just smiled, a small, knowing smile, and then I turned away, leaving him exactly where he belonged, in the past. Would you have forgiven him, given him another chance? Or would you have burned his life to the ground like I did? Let me know in the comments. And remember, never let a man convince you that you are weak, because sometimes